Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery, preparing to check in on a couple of my worm bins. They're already out here on the bench. I've already got my glove on. I'm more or less all set to go. I just figured I would share with you the information that I have here on this board about the two systems we're about to check in on. They're fairly old bins if you look at their ages. They're both creeping up on 300 days of age, both of them approaching 30 feedings. Perhaps not so much the younger bin. The younger bin is a little bit behind. But the interesting thing about the younger bin over here is that it's the one in which we've been doing a little test. And I'm surprised at how much time has passed already since we started this test. 150 days now since we placed a bag in there, which, according to the printing on the bag, which may or may not even be visible anymore, it is a supposedly compostable bag. And it has actually been showing some pretty significant signs of wear over time. Last time too, I accidentally managed to put a pretty good sized hole into the bag, which wouldn't really be a natural breakdown. I wouldn't count that as natural breakdown. It would have to count as accidental breakdown. I think last time too, even right before we started feeding, we noticed a little crop of little seedlings that were starting to pop out of the material here. I had placed a half of a tomato, seeds and all, obviously. Who's going to pick out the seeds from a tomato? And they all started germinating here within the system, and I had uprooted them and left them out here on the surface, or at least some of them, I believe. And either they took root again, or perhaps it's just other seeds sort of getting caught up. And wait a second, did I mix things up here? This one is the November bin, and this is the October bin. Sorry. Usually I want to go from your perspective, left to right, in terms of oldest and newest. So, I don't know, do we bother? Whatever, let's just do it. This is the arrangement I would typically want to follow here, so that from your point of view you can see the older bin here, left to right from your perspective, getting to the younger one over here. So here's where we left the compostable bag in the younger of the two bins, and we'll get to carefully unearthing it, because I could always just yank on that, but I would probably tear the bag in half. So that's not what we want to do. We want to kind of allow for the bin to do the work on the breakdown of the material versus me tearing it to shreds, which I could easily do. I mean, even before it got placed into the system, that bag was really fragile. You can kind of feel it, that it would pretty easily just tear in your hands. I would assume that that has something to do with its ability to be composted. I wish the labeling would be a little bit more specific though, because I do wonder sometimes if a cold composting environment such as a worm bin is capable of doing away with it, or does the compostability of the bag depend on heat? Because a lot of people, when they think about composting, do think about a hot composting environment where you've kind of combined the greens and the browns and the moisture accordingly to trip off that hot composting environment. But you could see this bag has definitely seen better days. Lots and lots of wear on it, little holes developing left and right. And sometimes it's a little bit tough to see because it is sort of a double layer. The bag is possibly not revealing all of the holes in it, because the opposite side of it is making it look like it's not even a hole there. But the big hole that I punched into it last time, the big gaping hole, was down here at the bottom. I'm not sure which of these large holes was the one that I accidentally caused last time, but you can definitely tell that this thing is making progress gradually. And I don't know if it's diminishing in material, if the material's vanishing actually, or if just holes are developing with no material being lost over time. That's what I'm really most interested in. So It's hard to tell, very difficult to tell. So that's our 150-day-old supposedly compostable bag, still in progress. And I'm sort of getting this impression here from checking through this system that I might want to protect the system's existing moisture content from further drying and evaporation. As you saw, the only thing covering things here was a thin sheet of newspaper on the very top, providing minimal protection from drying so that the top surface of the bins were pretty dry. You know, if you go to the material out here on the top surface, it's pretty dry stuff, nothing protecting it from just losing its moisture content to evaporation. And I've done that in many of my systems, because once the humid weather of our summers here in New Jersey kick in, the humidity pretty much sticks around almost all summer and makes it very difficult for things to dry on their own. So in many cases I would try to prompt the drying of the material in my bins with just a fan blowing across the top of the surface, hopefully causing some drying. I would obviously leave the systems with minimal protection from evaporation so that they can just sort of dry gradually through evaporation with moisture just leaving the system into the air. And you know, you can even see some of the leftovers over here of some of the bedding we placed in here. I think that this would have been my prepared bedding, which would have gone in with a little bit of moisture content to it. Sometimes I'll even use just dry shredded paper cardboard, not my prepared bedding, which is moist, just some of the dry stuff that came straight out of the shredder to try to absorb some of the system's moisture when I find that systems are a bit overly damp. So now this is right here like the stem of a banana. Banana is actually on the menu today, so there's a couple of banana peels in here. That includes the stem, and all this other stuff that you see here, well, the coffee is pretty obvious too, but all this stuff here, it's mainly potato peels. There's some carrot peel, there's some zucchini, you can see the middle of a jalapeno pepper in there. So it's a pretty good size feeding. It's got some nice weight to it. So I've already sort of laid out the table here. The only thing I'm contemplating is the bedding. I'm really wondering, systems this age, do I want to keep adding bedding, or do I want to at this point possibly start withholding bedding? So I mean, these coffee filters definitely count as bedding. So I think we're just going to leave it at that. We're just going to reuse those old coffee filters that were our feeding zone indicators, and we'll replace them with new ones after we've placed in the coffee as the food. And for now, this will just be the limit of what we're putting in as supplementary bedding for these systems. And I'm still sort of also debating on what I want to do with regards to covering up at the end. Because that newspaper covering that we've got going on, I don't think it's really giving us enough protection at this point. It might be worthwhile to come in here with some sort of a non-porous plastic, I guess, basically covering to help us guard against further drying, which I don't think any further drying in here would do the system much good. And by drying, you know, when the top surface dries, then it really limits the worms from being able to even explore anything near the surface, being as dry as it is. So I'm just throwing a few chunks of this zucchini over into the older system so they've got a fair split on the food supply. It's already a pretty nice, generous looking feeding, if you ask me, but we've still got banana peels and we've still got coffee to add. But I wanted to also do a little something here which I've attempted to do on occasion, but sometimes I forget, which is to, you know, try to prompt a lot of worm activity onto this compostable bag by sort of sandwiching it in between layers of food. So I think that by putting down the frozen carrot peel and potato peel and everything else, and then on top of that placing in some more food, I think we're going to be able to trigger some major worm activity over there. Perhaps a little more than we've done in the past when we've forgotten to try to arrange things. And then here, another similar test object, not similar, but just I guess in the category of test objects or novelty objects, is the stem of a pumpkin. Sort of thing that's also going to take some time to break down. Sort of depends, I guess, on the consistency of the pumpkin. Some of them are really porous and seem to shatter apart quite readily. Some of them are a little bit tougher. So we're definitely getting to the point where we're almost done, and I'm just contemplating what to do as far as coverings. I mean, the coverings, the newspaper coverings will come back in, the ones that were on here before, but if we were to place some sort of a plastic covering on top of that, then we would definitely see a lot more moisture beneath the plastic coverings. And then the worms would probably even come up and even explore that newspaper covering on the top surface if there were moisture recirculating beneath the plastic. So usually when I backfill the feeding area, I want to leave this little pigtail out here so that we can see where the so that we can easily see where the compostable bag is. Also telling us which of these is the younger of the two systems in case I mix it up like I do sometimes. These two also seem like they might be remnants of some banana stems, coming along quite nicely. So I think we can backfill the feeding areas and level things off. I guess my only other consideration is checking to see how the rest of the bin is doing. Let's put this down here, another little snack for them. All these bits of tomato, and here I guess is some more tomato. These are the skins of cherry tomatoes, but I believe it was just the half of a regular sized tomato that germinated its seeds down in here. Here's another stem of presumably a banana. So I usually try to get the leftovers that I encounter along the way back down near the feeding area, but it doesn't matter if we're not 100% on that. Okay, let's think about this here for a second. I suppose before we cover up, it wouldn't be too much of a bad idea, I guess, just to make sure that the outskirts of the bins are doing okay. They are doing quite nice, and to me it's always an immediate telltale if I see worms hanging out there. Then even if the stuff feels a little bit dry to me, it's probably just fine, because otherwise the worms wouldn't even be there. Let's see how things over here look. Similar story. Worms seem to be quite content in this material. I really like the way this stuff all crumbles and flows. Definitely got the kind of consistency that I like to see in my worm bins. A lot of my systems, once the humid summer months began kicking in, started showing signs of becoming just overly muddy, and the material in the systems would start to really clump together and make things really unmanageable. And I also feel like when things get clumpy like that, you get, large masses of material just in a big clump. To me, that doesn't seem like the types of material that worms are able to navigate through or even penetrate. The stuff just sort of sits there, accounting for a huge amount of volume in the system that's just idle, doing nothing, sitting there idle with no worm traffic. And well, that's kind of the opposite of what we want, right? We want worms in and out of our material, nibbling on everything they can. And when moisture sort of causes clumping in the bins, it makes me worry that they're just very limited on the amount of material they've got at their disposal to navigate through and live in, So back on come the coverings. And I think that the only last consideration here is some sort of a little bit of extra protection to help us not lose moisture, but I'm gonna have to go pick out some sort of a plastic bag or maybe a piece of bubble wrap or something. I gotta see what I got available, but I'm not gonna waste your time since I'm not prepared to do that. I'll do that after I shut off the camera. But before I go really quick, let me just say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.